Hello, I'm Ashley Bennett, and I'm a Sigma architect at Aimpoint Digital. Today, I'm going to walk you through the solution for week 24 of this year's Workout Wednesday for Sigma. This week, we're going to create a to-do list and use the new progress bars and rings to visualize the completion of our list. Let's get started. First, I'm going to create my to-do list with an empty input table. I'm going to call this to-do list, and we want to have items and then a checkbox for if it is finished, and then a date column, and we're going to call this our due date. And then just for funsies, we're going to add a notes column. And I'm going to add in some data here just to get us started. Of course, my dates didn't go through, but that's fine. I'll select a couple. Okay, now I am going to add my system columns, and I want that row ID. I also want to add in the last updated at and created at. And you could add in the last updated by and created by, but I don't really care for this project. Now I'm going to add some calculated columns, and I'm going to just add a calculation. This one is going to be completed date, and I'm going to hit the equals symbol to put me in the formula bar, and I'm going to do a date trunc of day. If finished, then last updated at. Otherwise, it'll be null. And then would like to also add another calculation to get the finished with no nulls. And basically, I'm just coalescing finished with false because an empty or an input table, as new rows are added, it will be null rather than false. You can see that some of these that have been clicked and unclicked are indeed false, but the others are empty, those are null. And we just want to reuse this logic downstream and don't want to have to type that coalesce multiple times. I'm going to do the same thing for due date, just in case a user forgets to enter a due date. And I'm going to do a similar coalesce statement, and I want to use the created at. We'll just say that if they don't enter a due date, then it will be an immediate need. And now another calculation column to determine if something is past due. And we want to look to see if the due date is less than today and it's still not finished. And then again, I want one more calculation column, and for one of our filters downstream, I want to flip the finished logic. So finished nulls equals false. And we're going to create a filter on this later and let users hide the finished with a switch, which we need to have true for our falses. And now I'm going to hide columns. It's basically everything up to here. I'm going to hide except for that completed date. We're going to leave that exposed to the end user. And I want to create some summary calculations. I want a row count as my total items list, and then I want finished number. Finished will be a count if finished no nulls. I'm going to use Shift D to duplicate that and create our unfinished. And I'm going to just say not finished no nulls. And then I want to add another column, and this will be our percent finished. And this will be finished divided by total items in list. You want to visualize that as a percentage. I like to do 1 decimal place. I'm going to duplicate this and do my percent unfinished. And I just want you to be unfinished. And then finally, I also would like to add a count if is past due to get my number past due. And now I want to create some filters so users might be able to find what they want a little easier. I am going to add a date range, and I want to target the date no nulls, due date no nulls. I'm going to use Shift C to create that and give it a control ID that makes sense. We're just going to do date. And then we will call you due date. And then I also would like to create a hide finished. I'm also going to use Shift C again. And this one, I do want it to be a switch. However, I would like this to be a true all so that we can see everything when it's not checked. I'm going to give it a new control ID, control hide finished. And then I would like to format this a little bit. I don't need to show the label, but I do want this to be a little bit prettier. I'm going to call it on hide finished, and off will be show all. And then that nice and small. And then I will container these, and I'm going to add them to a popover, which is under layout. Popover, this popover we're going to call filters. I like to show my filter count here and make it nice and wide. And then I will move you to my popovers, which I'm going to call filters. Make you bigger. Okay. And I also, in this, would like to add a button. And this button, I'm going to call clear filters. And the action I would like to do on this would be to clear my due date and then also set my hide finished as show all. I'm doing that in 2 separate actions rather than clearing all in that container, because sometimes even if you check reset to publish value, it doesn't always work the way I want it to with switches. So Here we go. That is a little easier. And then the last thing I want to do is add a little bit of text to alert users that if they use these filters, then your KPIs are going to be impacted. I'm going to go into add a text and add dynamic text by hitting equals and paste this in. So if our control due date or start or end are not null, or if control hide finished is true, then we will display this text. Otherwise, we'll display nothing. And finally, if we selected something like this, we see that, and we can clear our filters. Maybe we do last 2 days, including today, and clear our filters. All great. Awesome. Love that. Okay. So here we have this. And because I want my to-do list table to be visible, I'm going to do a little bit of formatting. I am going to go in and hide my summary bar under table components. I don't need to see all that. And then I am also going to hide my title. We will add one in later. And then I have hidden my columns. I'm going to format these dates to have a custom date string. Format, custom date string, and I want to show the day of the week. So this is what I'm going to use for both of my dates. And voila. And then I'm also going to add some conditional formatting. So I want to add formatting when to all columns, and I want to use a custom formula, and then I want the formula to be is past due. I want to highlight those as pink, less annoying pink. And then I'm going to duplicate this, but I really want you to be, I want to show which ones are unfinished. So I'm just going to use that same hide finished logic, but I don't want them to be pink. I'm going to have them be purple. So they are both highlighted. However, I forgot. When we hide finished, I don't want to overwhelm them with too much purple. So I'm also going to add in that control must be null because we have it set to true or all, which returns null. And now we can see that purple is only visible when all is shown. Excellent. Like that. Okay, and before we get too far into this, I'm also going to play with my workbook settings a little bit because some of our things are going to be dependent on color and things. So I'm going to just go ahead and set my base stuff here and make sure things wrap. Excellent. Color, let's go ahead and make my highlight purple. I like that. I'm not using anything else. Great. I like this. Okay. And now I am ready to create a date spine. I'm going to go ahead and name this to do and add a new page for my hidden data. And now I want to add a table, and I'm going to use custom SQL to create a date spine. You can use whatever you like. You can use the code that I provided or create your own date spine, use a CSV upload if you have one, whatever you need. And we just need to be able to fill in any days that do not have a date in our to-do list so that we can visualize a table, a calendar in a pivot table. And now that I have my code in, I'm going to add some summary calculations to help me traverse the months. So on the table version, I'm just going to hide this equal. On the table, I'm going to add a new summary. Oh, no, I'm not. I need to add my control first. I'm going to add just a date range control, and we're going to call this control date range. Okay, now, and this will be our date. It's fine. Now I can have a, or find my date range start and end, and this will be my range start. And I'm going to hit equals to put me up in the formula bar, control, not due date, date range dot start. I find this easier than retyping this every time. So I want to actually set this to the current month. And if it's this way when I publish, then we will always be set to the current month, regardless of when when people open this. I am going to use Shift D to duplicate my range start and change it to my end. That equals to go to the formula bar and end. And then I'm going to add another summary column, and this will be our selected month. And the logic here will be if date equals range start, then month year. And that's great. It's just a little easier to reference later. And then I want to also create my previous and next start and end. Previous start will be adding -1 months to our start. And let's see, I'm going to duplicate that for my next start. And instead of -1, I want to add 1. And then I'm going to add another column to get my previous end, which will be end of month of previous start. Duplicate, and will be next end. Excellent. Okay, now I am ready to create my child table of my input table. I'm going to go ahead and move this to my hidden data page, which I will go ahead and hide. Okay, and we're going to call this to-do list selected month. I'm going to target using my hidden date range control. And this will be the selected month only. I do want to recreate all of those summary calcs that I had so that I can get them at this level. So, okay, I've recreated all of the KPIs that we had at the total level so that we can get them at just the selected month level. And to do this, I did also made sure that I had access to those columns that I created. The finish no nulls is definitely needed for these KPIs, but we will also need the due date no nulls and is past due for some downstream stuff. So with this created, I'm going to go back to my date spine and create a child table. And this I'm going to call selected month to-do list was fine. And I want to join this to what I just created. Elements. And I do want this to be a left outer join. I want it to be on date equals due date no nulls. And now I will preview my output. Done. I should see, yes, 36 columns. Now I am ready to target that selected month is fine. So we get rid of all those other dates we don't need. And I want to target the date. And actually, this one, I want to target due date no nulls. Okay, great. So now 32 rows, 36 columns. That makes sense. Okay, and that's because in June there's one day that has 3 items on the list. So with this created, I can now create my calendar, which will be a pivot table. I'm immediately going to call this calendar view, and in my pivot rows, I want to be week starting Sunday because that's my preference. And then in the pivot columns, I am going to put in the day name, and I want to sort that appropriately. Custom sort. Let's sort that by day of week. That will be the minimum. It's fine. Great. We do not need our totals. Hide all totals. Great. And then in my values, I need to create some hidden values to help me. I would like to do countif is past due, to Shift R and rename the column as past due items. I'm going to Shift plus to add another one, and this will be count if not finished no nulls. And I'm going to Shift R again to name this due items. And then I'm going to Shift plus one more time to create my last hidden column of count distinct if. Let's count my, I need to add my ID. Actually, I don't even think we need the distinct. We're just going to count if finished. Okay. Great. Now I'm going to rename this completed items. This isn't very pretty. I'm going to add my visible column, and this is going to be a single column that shows the calendar day, and as well as the number of due or past due and number of completed items. So this is a hefty little concatenation here that takes that day, and then if there are due items, or completed items, then we will add some stuff. Great. And I'm going to call this day. Sure. And I will hide these. So now we look more like a calendar. Great. I am going to go back to my to-do list, put one of these, put this one on the 1st so I can see it in my calendar month. One past due. Excellent. So I see a past due, due, completed, all looks great. Now I'm going to do some more formatting on my pivot table so it looks a bit more like a calendar. Under title, I'm going to hide that title. I'm going to put it in elsewhere. And then under table style, I want you to be large, nice and big. And let's also then, let's see, column header, subheader, bold, centered. And then under cell, we want you to be top aligned. And then we are wrapped. Excellent. Okay. Under components, I don't need to show my column headers or row headers. I do want to hide this by making it white. Nope. Wrong thing. I want to make the text white. Great. And then make you super small. Okay. And now I would like to add some conditional formatting so that our view items stick out a little more. I am going to apply to day, and I don't want it to be if null. I would like to do, I can't apply a color scale to all columns, sadly. So I'm going to do a single color to all columns, or not to all columns. Can't apply it to day because it's not a value. So I am going to apply it a little bit more manually. So I'm going to say first, if past due items is greater than 2, then I'm going to make it dark pink. We'll duplicate 1. I'll make it slightly less. And then greater than 0, I'm going to do light pink. And then I will do the same for my due items. I want these to be after past due items in the list because due items will always have value. Even when past does not. Dark purple. Is that what they're called? Due items. Okay. Okay. And then I will just duplicate again, make these look all the same. Great. So a little bit of granularity there. I don't want to go too deep, but I like the way that looks. And then I am also going to set some buttons so that users can traverse our months. I'm going to make this stretch. I'm going to call this next month. And the action that we're going to do is just set our date range and I want to set it to our date spine next start, and date spine next end. Okay. And with that, I'm also going to duplicate and we will set it to the previous. And then I'm going to rename it. Now, if I hit next month, great, previous, great. Okay, and then I would like to add my title in. I like to do this as a text box just because it can be in line with the buttons. I think it looks a little prettier that way, and I just want this to be date spine selected month. I'm going to center that. Looks very nice. And then container all of this. And I will go ahead and put a border around it, make it look nice. And move this to my visible page. Container that. Border it. Great, great. Make things fit a little neater. That will be more easily seen when it's published or in publish mode and there's no sidebar. Now I'm ready to make some bars and rings. I'm going to find these under the UI. I'm first going to make a progress bar. I'm going to use a value, and I want the value to be my to-do list, and I want you to be the number unfinished. The minimum will always be 0, and the maximum will be, if there is none, it will be 0. Otherwise, it will be my to-do list total items. And I'm going to, under format, let's see, add some padding and a border, and then label. I want the label to be total remaining tasks. And then I would like my, let's see, that's bold, and let's make it a little bigger so it stands out. Same with this here. And then I'm going to add a description because I want to see what the total tasks is. And these progress bars don't have that. So I'm going to add in a description that just says of, and use some dynamic text here, equals my to-do list, total items in list, and let's put a ZN around that so it's 0 if null, and then I'm going to call this total tasks, and then make this again 24, nice and big. I don't need to bold that though. And then let's see. Okay. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this because I want it also for my selected month. I'm going to just change this to my selected month, which we call to-do list selected month. That's easy. Same here. Except, what did I call you? There we go. I'm going to just go ahead and copy that because we also need to be sure we put that here. Great. And then I also am going to put in a progress ring just to see what that looks like. I do want to do a percentage. I want the percentage on this side to be my to-do list, and I'm going to use unfinished, percent unfinished. And under format, I am going to element, let's do add padding so we can put a border around it. And then I would like the label to be total percent unfinished. And then, let's see, bold and 24 to match the value. Make that, nope, cannot make that 24. Let's just make it auto. Okay. And then I do want, let's see, purple for the fill and that. Great. Okay. And I will, again, duplicate, put over here. I just remembered. I want this to be dynamic text as well. We want this to be our date spine, selected month. There, that's more space. Let's update this. We want this to be selected month. And then we want to go back into our format. I don't want that. I would like dynamic text of date spine, selected month, percent unfinished. Great. Looks great. And I'm going to add one more that I'm going to put in the header. So I'm going to go into my workbook settings under navigation, add a page header. I'm going to hide the page tabs. We only have one visible tab, so it doesn't matter. And I'm going to go ahead and in the very top put a progress bar. Make this super, super, super apparent. I would like it to be a value, and the value is going to be my to-do list number past due, where the minimum is always 0 and the maximum is my ZN to-do list total items. And then format, add that border. I want this to just be called past due items. And actually, I don't want total items. I lied. I would like you to be number unfinished. Okay. And then in my format, I want you to be match my other ones. So I'm going to have to make you bigger. Okay. And I'm going to Should have folded, bolded, bolded, bigger. I am going to add a description, and I want this to be, let's see, equals ZN to-do list, number unfinished. Make it bigger again. And I do want to change the colors on these because I like my colors to match across the entire workbook. Whereas in our other bars, the gray or the unfinished bit is the total tasks. We can assume they are completed tasks. I want the track of this one to be purple because that's actually our unfinished tasks, and our fill is the finished tasks. I don't think that stands out quite as much. I'm gonna make it brighter. There we go. And now I'm just going to arrange things how I like them. So I want to add a title. I'm just going to call this my to-do list. And let's make this, since it is the big title, I'm going to make this big. Great. And let's go ahead and align it that way. Great. And oh, let's add a title to our to-do list, like I said we would do. Small heading, and we'll just call you to-do list. And let's be sure to set this to editable in publish mode. And let's bold our titles. Bold you can. And just to be super clear, let's container things together and add borders around them even more. Great. Now it's very clear that this is our total list and this is just the selected month. We can traverse through our months and see things as we like. And before I publish, I want to be sure that I go back and set this to current month so that it is more dynamic. Now when I publish, and go to publish version, it will always start on the current month. One last little UX that I like to add to my input tables that are editable in publish mode, I like to add actions to the checkbox columns, which in our case is just finished, so that they will check and uncheck without needing to click edit data. So what I'm going to do is when they click on the finished column, I am going to update the row in the to-do list, single row where ID matches the column ID. And I want to update finished to be true. I need to add a condition here. Custom. I want this finished no nulls equal to false. If it's equal to false, then I will update rows in the to-do list to true. I will duplicate this. So if it's equal to true, then we will set it to false. Now, when I publish and go to that published version, I can check and uncheck without needing to go to edit data. You still need to edit data in order to add new rows or anything of that nature. But there we are. Wasn't that easy? I'll see you next time for more Sigma challenges.